Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy Deep Voice, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. And we have a bit of a different episode in store for you guys today. There's going to be a different cutaway from the typical topical news that we cover, as well as everything all about organized jury. We are going to be covering, and joining us today will be James Johnson, and he's sitting here right beside me. Let me put him on screen here with us. James Johnson's going to be here with us, and we're going to be giving some red meat to all of the guys who have been basically asking for solutions. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I think one of the most common things I've been getting from a lot of the responses from people, whether it's from NAV or even some of the stuff with Offensively Accurate, is there seems to be this general discontent that we are not getting enough in terms of solutions or ideas of where to go. And so specifically, we have on James Johnson, somebody who has done and tried the infiltration route, and he has a bit of a good bit of advice to tell us about how to do it, how to organize ourselves. And so without further ado, Mr. James Johnson, who are you and what do you do?
Hey everyone. Well, as you said, James Johnson, I've been involved with our movement for about a decade now. In real life for about 5 years. Ran for office back in Cheyenne back in 2020. We all remember what that was like back in 2020. It was a crazy time.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I've been kind of behind the scenes involved with the movement for 5 years before that. Following certain people, certain groups, certain activisms, and never really took a step out in real life with the movement until, like I said, 2020, when I finally decided to dip my toe in and get involved more directly with what was going on. Otherwise, my background started military after college or after high school. After I got out of the military, I went to college for a bit. I've worked for I first got involved with politics mainly because of the type of jobs that I had been doing. They were mainly like government oriented. So I did work for the IRS for a little while. I know, Fed. And then also I worked for the state of Wyoming, their Department of Audit. And so basically auditors at the state level, they're kind of the how would I describe it? They're the ones that go and make sure that everybody's minding their P's and Q's, everybody's on the up and up, everybody's making sure that they're spending their money wisely, doing what they're supposed to be doing, this, that, and the other kind of stuff. So that was the job that I did last in Wyoming. Really enjoyed that particular type of job. I love doing that kind of stuff. I still do it on the side if people need help with any sort of analysis or anything like that. I've helped out Casey Whalen up in Idaho, helped him out with some of the stuff that he works on when he does his investigative reporting, if he needs numbers crunched or needs stuff looked into. But otherwise, like I love helping out people with that sort of stuff, looking into statutes and budgets and finances and things like that, kind of figure out what's going on.
Interesting. So we are definitely cut from two different cloths. I hate math. It's like my least favorite thing is to look at numbers and concern myself with where they go.
I hate traditional math. I like business math. A little bit different.
Interesting. Okay, fair. There is a distinction there. And I do want to say too, thank you to Appalachian Glory for becoming a member. Appreciate you, brother. I guess it's probably a good place to actually start is even on the dissident right, the far right, the I would just call it the regular right wing. It seems that there is a lot of arguing of what the strategy should be, what maybe should be the bulwark of the strategy in terms of how we should approach retaking America. And so there seems to be, one is this kind of parallel with Arval, right? With Arval is kind of rebuild a parallel economy. Don't worry about the institutions. We don't have enough time. There's a bunch of different reasons of, not pursuing the institutions. On the other side of that is infiltration. It is trying to hide your power level, as many people have put it, and working your way up through institutions and be able to get closer levels of power so that you can influence them in the way that you would like to, And so I would imagine, based off of your guide here that we're about to walk through, you are one who's in the infiltration camp.
Yeah, for the most part, I would say infiltration is definitely the way to go. I am a little pessimistic in that regard, in the sense that I know a lot of people suggest that our closest avenue is to infiltrate the GOP, but I feel the GOP, at least in my personal experience, your mileage may vary depending on where you're located. But in my experience, the GOP has already been infiltrated by a lot of left wingers, a lot of Democrats that just run as Republicans, especially if you're in an already red state. If you're already in a red state, chances are anybody running as a Republican there is already a Democrat. They just run as a Republican. So you're up against that situation where if they get a whiff of you being nationalist in any particular way, they will try to push you out. They will try to force you out. And you saw this at the national level too, with Trump, how the institutional establishment, GOP, tried to push him out back in 2016. Well, they did push him out in 2012. They tried to push him out in 2016. But he was able to stick around because there was enough momentum behind him on that nationalistic sort of side of things. I have my personal gripes with Trump on a personal level, but the evidence is there that there was a need for that, that there was a desire for that sort of nationalism. And that's what I think we can capture and we can carry forward. But again, you just have to be wary that if they get a whiff of nationalism at the local level, your local county GOP, things like that, they might try to force you out. So you just got to be really careful about how you go about approaching things.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like, being involved, getting involved, but with the full awareness of, for one, what your political landscape is, two, understanding what it is even at the national level, and three, hiding your power level in terms of like, don't go into it blind, have a bit of understanding of who you need to appeal to, who you need to kind of placate to get close, which I like. And I like a lot of that.
Your first month, I'd say your first month or two, it's probably to go into the meetings and things like that at the local level.
Yeah.
Just sit and listen, sit and observe, kind of figure out how things work, how things tick. And then you can kind of go from there. You kind of figure out, okay, well, this person aligns with me, so I'll talk with them. I'll connect with them, this and the other kind of stuff. But also be aware of people that are considered fringe. Because if you align yourself with the more fringe type people in that group, then you're probably going to be viewed as fringe as well. So you got to be aware of that as you're going in there. You might connect with, Joe Schmo over here, blue collar guy, he's a plumber. He's leaning nationalist, but he is not well liked by the rest of the group. So if you align with him, then you might get pushed to the side as well. So just be aware of that as well.
Yeah. And it seems that that's kind of what we have like the least grasp on, at least in terms of like the young kind of Gen Z crowd of the optics, or like, how to appeal to an audience, if you will. Some of that, obviously, as the Overton window moves, you have to worry, concern yourself, much less about, but it's not like the Overton window has shifted enough that you can, like previously, well, who was the guy who got out? It was the group chat leak, right? With the young Republicans. And these were even, to me, some of the more lighthearted ways. They were jokes, they were in jest, they weren't like actually being very meaningful, and they still were outed at the highest level, turned over. I mean, yep. You have Republicans, Gavin Wax, working with leftists to get them out because Gavin Wax is trying to further his career. And so it's cutthroat at these levels too. And I think you said it best in the video we're about to watch, is that you really don't understand how kind of craven these people will be in understanding the risks that go into, and also your family, right? Who else is going to be who's going to be targeted. So I guess it's probably a great point to go ahead and switch over to the video here. And we'll get a feature here from also Dave Reilly as well, who you were able to get in contact with too. So let me go and swing this over. The video here is in front of us. The chat's going to be right underneath Mr. Johnson here as well. So any questions that you guys have for him, definitely get them in there into the chat as well too. He'll be paying attention himself. I'll be paying attention as well. Let me make sure I have the correct. Yes, I do. Just want to make sure I have the right limiters turned on, and we do. That way the video sounds perfect. All right, here we go. And stop me anytime, Mr. Johnson.
Hello everyone, my name is James Johnson, here to give you some information about how to run for local office. Now we're at a very precarious time in our nation. As most of you know, our nation's not going in a good direction. That's pretty much readily apparent to anybody and everybody who pays any attention to anything that's going on. However, we need to get off the couches. We need to get off the computers. We need to actually run for local offices. I'm not talking about federal offices. I know everybody says that politics is fake and gay and that's a waste of time to vote. There's no political solution, etc. I get that, and I 100% agree for the most part. But at the local level is where we can make differences happen. Behind me here is the Sioux Falls City Council building. You can actually go and attend city council meetings at any point in time and even speak in front of your city council members. That's just one small step that you can take to make a difference in your local community. But aside from that, again, the purpose of this video is to convince you, the viewer, to actually go out there and make a difference in your community by running for office. Because the fact of the matter is, if we are not the ones that take upon ourselves this particular burden, we just end up leaving it up to our enemies. Our enemies that want to see our nation fall apart. Our enemies that want to see our culture destroyed. Our enemies that want to see our children enslaved. Our enemies, such as them. They've been able to run roughshod for the last century over our rights, over our values, and over our entire culture. Our nation is falling apart because we have not stepped up. We have not taken the role that conservatives have ostensibly said they were going to take to actually fix our nation.
Let me just ask you this first question here before we get too far away from it, because it's something you led with. Not being blackpilled, and it's kind of something that I'd thought about too. Would you say if somebody has to already kind of convince themselves to motivate themselves to get off the couch to get involved, maybe already isn't the type of person who shouldn't be involved?
I would say, as I said in one of the posts I had underneath my video, the audience of this video are people that are already at least somewhat interested in running for office. So I'd say if you're blackpilled, this video is probably not for you, because you have to have that right mindset. Running for office isn't something you just do, especially if you don't feel like doing it. You have to be all in to do it. And I do say that later on in the video as well. But it's just a matter of, are you dedicated to going the distance with this sort of thing? And if you're not, you probably shouldn't run for office, because again, it's a big commitment for everything.
Yeah, especially when you got to put your face and name on it, right? Something that people will be able to look up in the newspaper many years from then. But okay, let's go back to here.
Now it's up to us, the far right, the white nationalists, whatever you want to call us. It's up to us to step forward and take that role upon ourselves and make America the nation it should be once again.
Hey there, my name is David J. Reilly. You might know me from my podcast, The Backlash, but if you live in Idaho, you would know me for a different reason, a couple of different reasons, and that would be because I have run for political office several times. I've worked as a political consultant for the last 5 years, and so James reached out to me in this collaboration to share some of my thoughts, some tips and tricks, some insights on running for public office. First of all, one of the things that I would say is assessing your political landscape and assessing what your goals are in running for office. Because sometimes running for office isn't necessarily all about winning. For example, in 2023, when I ran for governor of Idaho, I wasn't running to win. I was running to expose hypocrisy and to get people talking about something called crossover voting. This is when Democrats register as Republicans and they vote in the primary for the weaker Republican candidate. And then after the primary, when the weaker, more liberal rhino Republican wins, they switch back to the Democrat Party and they vote for their candidate. So nobody in Idaho was talking about this crossover voting situation, and I thought it was important. So I, as a Republican, switched parties, became a Democrat, and then ran for governor as a Democrat. And you can guess what happened next. The press, the media, everybody was all up in arms about crossover voting. Of course, it was me as a Republican switching to Democrat, but still, it legitimized the talking point. It got people talking, and this issue of crossover voting has now become like a household thing. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's aware of it. And actually, Because of this little stunt that I pulled, we were able to enact bylaws in the Idaho Republican Party that prevented anybody who was registered as a Democrat within the last 2 years, was prevented from voting in the Idaho Republican Party primary.
Let me ask you this. I'm kind of curious, assessing your political landscape, I'm kind of curious, in your opinion, what are some of those metrics you should look for? What should someone be looking for when they're assessing their political landscape?
The advice I usually give to people is, number one, know what office you're running for and have a good idea of how many votes you need to win that office. For example, let's say you live in a town of 15,000 people. And let's say each district, each city council district in that city, let's say each one has 2,000 voters. So in order to win that city council seat, you need to win at least 1,001 votes. And then you'll be successful. So that's the first step, is knowing how many votes you need to win. And then number two, knowing what the makeup is, the demographic makeup is of that particular district or whatever area you're planning to run on. So for example, I mean, if you're running for mayor, it's the entire city. If you're running for county commission, it may be the entire city, or some counties divided up into districts as well. It just kind of depends on where you live. But look into how many votes you need, what the demographics are, and then kind of make a plan from that as far as, okay, well, you know, my district is 90% white, so I can present myself this way. They're also in this income bracket. They're more lower to middle income, so I can present myself this way and kind of talk to their issues on these terms. If you're speaking a different language than the people in your district, it's not going to connect. So you have to make sure that, you know, if you're in a more affluent district, you have to speak more affluent. And I don't necessarily mean like speak, but as far as like what you are presenting of yourself and how you're presenting your message, it has to be something that connects with them. Otherwise, you're just going to lose them. So I did see some people in the chat talking about, you know, is this equivalent to lying to people? Is this being deceptive? Things like that. In a way, you could argue that it is, but it's more along the lines of knowing your audience and knowing how to present your message to your particular audience. So it's not necessarily saying go against your ideals, go against your principles or anything like that. It's saying, what are your principles and ideals, and how do you present those principles and ideals to your audience in a way that connects with them? Because if you don't connect with them, as I said before, if you don't connect with them, you're going to lose them and somebody else is going to win them. So it's just a matter of making sure that you have that good connection, that good rapport with your potential voters.
Yeah. And I guess I was also curious too, because it sounded like you had done a good amount of door knocking. And I was curious if there was is there like a golden ratio with like door knocking? Is there like a certain amount that they say, you know, if you're knocking on 10 doors, you should at least be getting one vote or something along those lines? Is there any kind of like general political kind of ratios they look for?
Well, unfortunately, in my case, I didn't do as much door knocking as I probably should have, because again, this was 2020, so during COVID. And I was afraid that me going around knocking on people's doors at that time, because this was, you know, in March, April, May of that year, I was afraid that I was going to be viewed as somebody insensitive, somebody who was not really caring about getting other people sick. Because I did live in a more affluent side of town of Cheyenne. I lived in one of the more wealthier districts of Cheyenne.
Okay.
And so I figured that those particular people lean a little more left. And so if I go around knocking a bunch of doors around there, they're probably going to be against me for doing that. I did go around and leave some placards, some, what do you call them? Some postcards and stuff in their doors. So I did a little bit of that. But as far as like actually going around knocking doors and things like that, I didn't do that as much as I probably should have. If I were to run again, I would definitely do it this time around. And I would have a team as well to go out there with me. Not necessarily like go with me, but like, you know, have 4 or 5 other guys going around knocking doors around the entire district to kind of help out with spreading the work.
Word. And I'm kind of curious, if you could, and you don't take too much time, I guess, what does a door knock look like? I guess, what's like the general gist? Like, what is like the first thing that you're saying? How do you engage with somebody you've never seen before? Because I think most people, when they think of door knocking, they don't want to, because they know they're going to be looked at like a Jehovah's Witness. You know, so I'm curious, like, did you have any kind of strategy?
I get the nervousness of it. So it's just a matter of, again, this goes with, and we'll talk about this later in the video, but this goes with getting more comfortable with public speaking. So when I worked for the mayor or volunteered with the mayor here in Sioux Falls, I did do some door knocking because we were delivering signs. And I didn't feel like just leaving the sign in somebody's yard. We ended up doing that sometimes if nobody was there. But I would go up to the door, I would knock, and I would say, hey, my name's James. I'm with the mayor's campaign. Want to see if we can leave a sign. Do you have a particular spot you want it left in? And then they would kind of direct me, yeah, just put it there on the corner. You make up your mind. You put it wherever you want to put it, blah, blah, blah. But if I were in campaign mode, again, for myself, I would have maybe a 1-minute speech kind of prepared in my mind. Hey, my name is James Johnson. I'm running for city council ward number 2. These are my stances on this, this, and this. And I want to make sure that I hear you out. You know, is there anything in particular you have concerns about that maybe I haven't even been aware of? You know, how do you think things are going? Is there anything you want to talk about? And kind of throw the ball in their court as far as giving me some information back. And if they say, well, no, I'm not interested, or no, I'm kind of busy right now, it's like, oh, totally fine. If you ever want to reach out to me, here's my business card. Hit me up anytime and we'll go from there. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
It's beautiful. Like a great elevator pitch. And I like that, throwing the ball in their court. That's probably a great way to even engage it, you know, just simply saying like, listen, you know, I have some ideas of how to clean some things up in the city, county, etc. But I'd be curious, and I'm out here actually because I want to know what you guys think would be the most valuable things to clean up. You might get some awful answers in that too, but at least you'd be able to gauge like what they're thinking and like what's on their minds at that time.
Yeah.
But great advice. Thank you.
And just be aware with some people, you'll never win them over anyway. So don't feel like you have to win over everybody because you're not. So for example, the pitch that I just gave, somebody might throw that back in my face and say, well, you're the one running for office. Why are you asking me? You should have the solutions. You should have the answers. And it's like, well, because I'm trying to represent you and I want to know what you think and what you're concerned about. Yeah. You wouldn't tell them that because you don't want to get combative with people because that just reflects badly on you. But it's just a matter of just realize that not everybody's going to be all flowers and sunshine, obviously. Just know that, hey, if they're bumpy against you, if they're a bit aggressive with you, just let it go and move on.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's go on. I think the next thing here is, okay. I got the next thing here. Let's go.
So with my run for governor, the goal wasn't to win. It was to raise awareness. It was to enact bylaws. And it was also to take some heat off of some more conservative candidates that were running. But because I threatened to take over the Democrat Party, all of a sudden, a bunch of these crossover voters, Democrats that had registered as Republicans, they had to leave the Republican Party, re-register as Democrats, and vote in their primary, which freed up a very small margin of about 50 people that voted Democrat instead of Republican, and that allowed us to get 2 much better elected representatives in Legislative District 3.
No, just a short thing on the crossover voting. I think it's different upon which state. Some states have it banned, some states don't.
Yeah. And again, that's a matter of looking into how it is in your state, because if crossover voting is allowed in your state, you have to take that into account when you run for office. Now, if you're running for a nonpartisan office, it doesn't matter. So if you're running for city council, usually those are nonpartisan. A lot of times school boards nonpartisan. Sometimes even county offices are nonpartisan. It just kind of depends on how big your county is or how it's structured. But anything above that level, county level and above, is probably going to be partisan. So it does play into account where if you're in a larger city or larger area, chances are it's probably going to be, if it is a Republican that wins, it's going to be a more left-leaning Republican that wins that particular primary. And then for people that maybe aren't aware or aren't familiar, there's 2 different elections. There's your primary election, there's the general election. So primary election usually happens a couple months before the general election. And those are usually limited to the parties themselves or the members of those parties to decide who's going to go to the general to face off against each other. And sometimes there'll even be a primary for nonpartisan offices where if you have several people running for the same office, they'll take the first top 2 vote getters, and they'll run against each other in the general election. So just be aware that there's the 2 different elections. You're going to be running twice whenever you run for office in most cases.
Interesting. And so I guess just to recap, if you are in a state that does allow the cross voting, you're probably in a position to placate a lot more to the other side, to appease, to also those who may come across the line to vote in the primary.
Yeah, so that's one way I look at it as well. So like where I live in Sioux Falls, it's mostly red here in South Dakota. But the state has a very interesting quirk where you must be registered Republican to vote in the Republican primary, but in the Democrat primary, you can be independent as well. So I was considering if I do run for a partisan office, run as a Democrat, which is going to be a long shot, but run as a Democrat and try to appeal to independents to come over and vote for me in the primary and basically really piss off the Democrats because, you know, having a white nationalist win the Democratic primary in South Dakota would be insane.
Yeah, but it's strategy though, and that would have been a cool thing to pull off though. But thank you, and let's go back to the video.
So as I mentioned before, there's several reasons why you should consider running for office. Obviously, the most important one is we need to take our culture back. We need to fight for an America that we actually feel comfortable growing up in, that we actually care about our children growing up in. And that all starts with you, okay? Taking that step, going out there, putting your name on the line. However, there's some other benefits as well. Now, you have to understand, we need to push the Overton window. And we could do that by running for office, little by little by little. It might ultimately depend on where you live, what community you grew up in, what community you're running in. But we do have to try. And so by moving the Overton window, we can also work on building our community reputation. The more people see us involved in the local community, the less likely they're going to consider us monsters or something to be ostracized, something to be pushed aside. Keeping in mind, for the last 100 years, our enemies have run this game. They've covered this ground. They've done it very, very well. We need to take those steps as well. We can't leave it up to conservatives who say they're going to push to conserve our culture and just ultimately end up not doing it. So we do need to take those steps, build those networks. That's one of the main goals of running for office is you build some local community networks, improve your reputation, move the Overton window, and make a direct impact on your community that's going to be positive for our cause and our people.
And something to expand upon here.
Yes, let's do it.
So something to expand upon there that's I didn't want to fit into the video itself. I didn't want to make it too long. But being involved in the community. So there's a lot of different organizations you can volunteer with, either at the city level, the county level, to make those networks, to get involved with people, kind of figure out who's who in your area. You could even do nonprofits as well. Like, for example, I volunteer with our museum here. I volunteer with an outdoor educational program. I volunteer with Junior Achievement. There's something else I volunteer with too, but I forget off the top of my head. There's a lot of different stuff that I get involved with around the community. And I can make networks out of that because you get to know people and you get to know, okay, this person's in charge of this person's in charge of that. And you are able to call upon those relationships later on. And as I said in that little segment right there, the more you're involved in the community, the less likely they will view you as a monster because it's really easy to ostracize you if you're not involved at all. If you don't get involved with the system at all, if you don't get involved with the community at all, they're like, well, you know, this guy's just a white nationalist. We don't care about him. He's just a Nazi. You know, go ahead and forget about him. He's not worth anything. But if it's somebody who volunteers, donates, gets involved with cleanups around the city, all of these sort of things that you could potentially do just in your free time, a couple hours a week, couple hours a month even, it will help. It will help build up your reputation to where you will be seen as somebody who's a positive member of the community.
And you led with a couple. Are there like any specific ones you would tell people, you know, that anybody can kind of expect to go to in their local area, like things to pay attention to network with?
So I usually recommend, I love if people would go to, and I do this in every city that I live in. So if your city is big enough, if it's got what's called a Citizens Police Academy, it's basically where the local PD teaches you how their police department works and how things function, the different departments they have in there. They do different presentations on the different departments, use of force, vehicle and transportation, all of this sort of stuff they kind of go over. And so that's one I usually recommend people look into. Your city might also have what's called a Citizens Planning Academy, where you go over the plans department, where they decide, okay, well, this is where we're going to put commercial zones. This is where we're going to put residential zones. This is how we're going to have the roads work through there. This is how we're going to set up the utilities through there. And it gives you a really good overview of how your city operates from that sort of infrastructural sort of view. There might be other types of programs like that at your city level. So definitely, hit up your city clerk. They could probably point you in the right direction as far as like, oh yeah, we got this kind of program. You could volunteer for different boards and commissions depending on how big your city is. Sometimes in the smaller cities, just throw in your application and you'll probably get on because they're always looking for people. In the bigger cities, and I do say this in the video later on, but in the bigger cities, you do have to put in a more stringent application and you have to go through the process. It's basically like getting a job.
Yeah.
But once you're on one of those boards, you're usually on for at least a term or two. So about 4 years to 8 years. And you get to know people at the city level. You get to know people that are also on that board with you. And you get to actually enact different policies. For example, when I was in Inglewood and I was on a couple of boards there, one of the boards was the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. So one of the city ordinances that came before us to decide on and to research was a what do you call it? Not feral dog, but violent dog or dog ordinance of some sort.
Okay.
And so our nearby neighbor Denver already banned pit bulls specifically. So they had a breed specific ban going on there. And I argued against that. I said, we don't need a breed specific ban. Let's just have a violent dog ban. That way it covers everything.
Yeah.
If something like that comes up. And so that was one of the things that I was able to kind of help push through to where we wouldn't have like a specific breed that's banned. I know a lot of people hate pit bulls. Fine. That's whatever. I'm not even going to get into that, but it's just a matter of, having that influence, having that ability to affect change at the local level.
Yeah. And to back up your point, specifically on the planning committee, this is one thing I was actually privy to when I was bartending, actually. And so many people might not know this, but I bartended and I was like the highest end server, waiter, whatever you want to call me, at the establishment that I worked at. And more often than not, I would be the one that would take over for any kind of catering events. And so there was an additional subsection attached to this restaurant that was only for catering, but it was the best one in all of the town I grew up in. And so funnily enough, Jim Jordan, I've met about at least, I think at this point, 14 or 15 times. And it was all because of the amount of times he was coming into this building. And it was all the planning committee. It was like business owner, city official here. And it was cool to see because, I mean, like I'm just serving him whatever. I'm just serving him pizza and stuff. But I was listening into their conversations and I can't remember what this was. I think it's called Plan 33. But basically it was about what we're talking about. It was organizing between Jim Jordan and what their goals were, 5-10 years down the future for what they wanted to do along this one particular highway. And that'd be a great thing to get involved with because it would hit so many different markers. It'd be like you would have this business owner you'd have a relationship with. You'd see this business owner and you could begin to expand and network from there. Now, how you get invited to a planning meeting like that or being able to show up to it is a different story. But there are elements like that you can find where you can find multiple bigwigs of a similar town all together and find your way into, make yourself friendly, if you will. But back to the video, though.
And also,
go ahead.
And also on the idea of these different boards, commissions, they're open to the public. So at least the city ones, the county ones. So you can always go to it first and get a feel for it and figure out, okay, well, is this the kind of stuff I want to be involved in or not? And then kind of decide from there, okay, well, I really like transportation issues and I want to make sure that we have nice bike trails and things like that. So I want to get involved with this committee because they deal with that kind of stuff. But I sat on this board for talking about pensions for the city employees, and that's really, really boring, and I don't really care about that. So I'm not gonna do anything with that,
right?
Kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's probably another element too. Is you might need to make yourself interested in things that you might not otherwise be interested in, purely for the sake of networking and being able to placate other people. But back to
and also help later on when you get questioned on it by constituents or by voters to know something. You don't want to be somebody that's just sputtering or making up something. So, I mean, even if pensions don't hold that much interest to you or anything budgetary, knowing at least a little bit about it to be able to speak to it would go a long way. Because if you speak with authority and confidence, that reflects positively on you when you're trying to go for an office of some sort. Whereas if you're just like, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you, then it just kind of looks bad.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. And we're about to get to that here soon. Your portion of that, having charisma or your ability to speak publicly, I think is something people do need to take into consideration. It's a great point.
I have some personal experience with running for office, and the point of this video is also to kind of give you some advice as far as things I wish I'd known beforehand, as well as things that other people I know that have run for office would have known beforehand. Tips and tricks, hints, things to look out for to make sure that you don't fall into the same pitfalls and you are ultimately successful in running for office. Now, my background includes being on various boards and commissions for the city. It's a very easy entry-level position you can get into politics. All you got to do is just apply, and hopefully you get on. If it's a bigger city, it's going to be a little tougher, but if it's a small city, they're always looking for people. You could get on pretty damn easily. The other things I've done is I ran for city council and mayor back in Cheyenne. I was unsuccessful, but being for a first-time person running and barely doing any door knocking, I actually did fairly well. I came in 4th out of 4, but I came in with 13% of the votes. And again, that was just doing strictly online campaigning, strictly social media campaigning during 2020. You remember what happened during 2020, the things that were going on. But I've also helped out other people with their campaigns as well. Again, that's another method you could use to get your foot in the door and get some of that experience with running for local office, is helping other people successfully run for office themselves. You get to see it firsthand. You get to work with their donors. You get to work with their fundraisers. You get to work with the people that crunch their numbers, do their polling. It gives you a good insight into what kind of things you have to do as a candidate in order to be ultimately successful to win.
Now I was going to expand on this one too myself. I guess when you were deciding like when you needed to campaign or when you were back to campaign, I guess how much time did you give yourself? Would you have given yourself more time? And is there maybe a right way to do or launch a campaign?
I would say in my particular case, it's a very unusual case because I originally started deciding to run for mayor, and because our mayor in Cheyenne at the time was worthless. And I realized that if I'd run for mayor, I would split the vote and she would win the primary and go on to the general. So I didn't want that to happen. So I made sure to drop out of the mayor race and then go for city council instead. Now, me personally, I'm not big on legislative. I feel more at ease, more in my zone with the executive branch.
Yeah.
That's why I was running for mayor. But I decided, hey, I want to get my foot in the door, give this a go, see if I could get on. And at least if I'm on city council, I could be one of 9 people that holds whoever the mayor is accountable. Unlike the other 8 people that are on there now, they don't do crap. So that was kind of my viewpoint, my thought process in that whole thing. And so if I had not run for mayor first and got a taste of the big picture, I probably would have taken a little bit longer to decide to run for council. But again, I went about it a different way than probably most people do.
Yeah. No, because that's one thing I was thinking of too, is for a lot of people who might be wanting to get involved, it's like you probably want to look right now, especially because different states, different zones, different cities all have different kind of election seasons, different places depending on where you are. And for a lot of people, they may get not blackpilled, but it may be disheartening if you go to start running for something and the thing you want to go run for, it was like the election happened a week ago. Right? It's like then it's like, well, maybe till next year, 2 years from now. But more on the video.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's going to be a lot of things you have to consider before you run for office. You got to consider the impact it's going to have on your family and on your own personal life. People do not play nice in politics. I learned that firsthand myself. Many other people that have run for office will tell you the same thing. You have to expect the worst out of the worst people possible. They're going to come for your family. They're going to come for you personally. They're going to attack every little minutia in your past, every little mistake you've made in your history. They're going to find it and they're going to amplify it. So you have to be prepared to handle that.
How to handle a hostile press. Because generally speaking, for people like us, the press is going to be very hostile. And so you're going to want to know how to handle this. So first of all, deflect, deny, and delay. Those are the tactics that you should be using. And especially when it comes to phone calls. You will wind up getting phone calls from reporters, phone calls from journalists. They want to get you when you're off your guard, when you're off kilter, you're flat-footed, if you will. And so they want to catch you unprepared with gotchas. They want to get you to say something that they can use against you. And so you want to be very careful about that. So if you get a phone call from a journalist, you're busy. You've got stuff going on. You have an event this evening, and I'm sorry I don't have time to talk, but if you send me an email with your questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. So you want to get them to communicate with you via text message, via email, something written, where you can then answer their questions in full and then post your answers to these journalists in full on your social media. Then when they lie about you and slander you and truncate your answer, you can say that the press is, treating me very unfairly. They're treating me very unfairly. And here's what I actually said to them, right? So you want to control as much of the variables with the press as humanly possible. And again, the best way to do that is to communicate with them only through the written word. That way you're not caught off guard by their questions and you have time to think about it. In the case that doesn't work, you can delay. You can say, listen, I'm not free for a phone call today, but maybe in a week or maybe tomorrow. And then you just keep pushing it off day after day. Either A, in the hopes that they'll give up, or B, that at least it gives you time to prepare some sort of counter narrative to whatever smear the journalists are going to come after you. When somebody is attacking you for your person, for things that you may have done, activism that you may have done, or even maybe a personal scandal, what you want to do is always redirect people to your platform.
Other things you have to consider too is, can you hide your power level? As I mentioned before, we need to work on moving the Overton window. In order to accomplish that, we have to be successful. Other factors you have to consider too is the amount of time it's going to take out of your life, the kind of disruption it's going to have to your personal life. These are things you have to make your family aware of. These are things you have to be prepared for going into it. You're going to be under the microscope when you run for office. So I just want you to know ahead of time, to be clear, that you have to make this commitment. If you're going to run for office, you're all in.
So what I will say is this, I think, was probably the most substantive portion of the video, or at least the one that I think is probably guys need to clip that 3-minute portion, 4-minute portion, and play on rewind so they can remember the tactics. And it seemed like you had a good bit that you wanted to expand upon here too, particularly the one thing here that you wrote, answering the question that you want to answer and not answering the question that was asked. So could you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So that's an old debate tactic that they'll teach you in any kind of debate class or debate club that you're part of. But, somebody asks you a question that's a little pointed and something that's you don't feel comfortable answering. I'm trying to think of a good example, but I can't think of one right off the top of my head. So some particular question of, I've asked questions to politicians before, and I've said, here in San Antonio, when I lived in San Antonio, we have problems with traffic. Traffic is kind of out of control because this city is designed very poorly. It's designed off of old wagon trails and things like that. So what are you going to do at the federal level as a congressman to help alleviate those issues? And the congressman didn't answer the question at all. He kind of pivoted to a different subject entirely. So that's kind of what you can do. I mean, it's underhanded, it's deceitful, but again, it's just know your audience. So if it's somebody you feel is friendly to your cause, don't do that. Be sincere with the people that are going to be friendly to your cause. But if it's somebody that's just there to be a troll, there to be a punk, a pest, divert your question away. If they're a very pointed question of, you said on this date, blah, 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 and this, that, and the other, then you just divert them to something else. You say, well, I think it's important. That's a very important question that you asked there. And I thank you for asking that question. So here's what I think about this, this, and this, completely different subject.
Interesting. And I guess my next question would be, are there any easy I would imagine most people would probably just no based on the way the question is being asked, but are there any other kind of easy tells based on what to look for to determine if somebody is hostile or friendly, like in the media? Or would you say it would just behoove somebody to be familiar with who the media is in the first place?
The second one, definitely. So whoever your local media is, get a feel for who's who and know, okay, well, this person is kind of moderate. So they're going to give me a fairly favorable view. Whereas this person is a far lefty. So they're going to be pretty hostile to me no matter what. You can go through their previous work on their website. Whether it's the newspaper or whether it's the local TV, you can kind of go through and see what kind of stuff, what kind of stories they've covered, how they've covered those stories, and get a feel for them that way. You could even, offer to do an interview, like Dave Reilly said, do a written interview and say, hey, I'm running for city council too, and I want to see if you'd be willing to do an interview with me. Go ahead and send me some questions that you might have, and I'll respond to you. And then you can kind of go that route. It's just a matter of, like you said in your second example there, getting a feel for the media ahead of time, and don't just jump into a blind. I mean, can you know every media person in your local community? Probably not. I mean, even in my town, there's probably dozens, and I definitely wouldn't know all of them, but at least know who the movers and shakers are, especially the people that are on the political beats, the people that are specifically assigned to cover politics at the local level, and know how they tick, know what makes them work. And you could even look into their alma mater. You could look into what college they went to. You could look into what city they grew up in, what state they grew up in. Look into their family and find out, are they married? If they're married, how many kids they got? This, that, and the other kind of stuff. So you can kind of get a feel for, okay, is this person going to be hostile to me, or am I going to be on safe ground talking to this person?
Yeah, definitely. And I had another train of thought. Wanted to make sure I can catch it before I lose it. I think specifically on the elements of probably need to have some variety in your strategy, because I think Dave Reilly, what was it? Deny, deflect, delay. And I would imagine if you are continually denying and, over and over, people might pick up on that. Same thing with like deflecting, if you're deflecting over and over. So I would imagine it would also probably behoove you to have a bit of variety in terms of this approach. But again, to have some variety would mean you would have to know, you need some intuition, some base level knowledge of who you're actually dealing with to be able to do that. But thank you. We'll go back to the video.
It's not all doom and gloom. I want to make that very clear. There's going to be a lot of challenges you are going to face running for office, but it's not all doom and gloom. Consider somebody like me. I was arrested with Patriot Front back in 2022, back in June. And I'm living a perfectly fine life. In fact, I know the mayor well in our city. I helped him with his campaign, for example. I also volunteer for a lot of different organizations and community functions around the city. Nobody has an issue with me, but people are aware that I'm a little different, but they don't seem to mind. And maybe that's just a positive from where I live. I live in a place that's relatively red, a little more white population than most other places that you might consider in the United States. We have to be willing to take these chances. We have to be willing to go forward with these efforts. There's also the building your community reputation. So as you go out there and you serve on boards, commissions, as you volunteer in your community, as you help campaigns get into office, you start to build your reputation. People are going to be less likely to consider you the neo-Nazi monster or something along those lines if you are actually willing to put yourself out there and try to be a positive influence in the community. Once we get into these offices, again, by hiding your power level, but being aware that the Overton window is moving, we'll be able to actually make bigger positive impacts at the local level, even bigger than you might expect at the federal level. Everybody considers the federal level the be-all, end-all, but there's so many things that you can do at the local level that trump everything you can do at the national level. Consider, for example, a sheriff. Any county sheriff can trump federal agents just by being the top law enforcement officer in that jurisdiction. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact that you will be that person that has those positive impacts in the community. And the Overton window has shifted. So back when I ran in 2020, it was a little tougher. I mean, even using conservatives as my base, as my political base, they weren't quite there yet. We were in the middle of COVID. We were doing the Dirty Black Summer. We were dealing with BLM, all these other kind of things going on. They weren't there yet. I think now they're a little further along. I personally still have my personal hangups with conservatives, but they have moved a little more to the right than we expected before. A lot of that's due to Trump. A lot of that's due to a lot of the things that have happened in our society over the last several years. So again, don't think that it's an impossibility to run for office. People have run and been successful, but again, you're not going to win office by being a shaved head neo-Nazi wearing a swastika on your armband and marching into downtown. You're not going to win that way at all. That's just not. We're not there yet.
You would explain a little bit of why we're not there. That a little bit maybe more on how to appeal with the optics.
I mean, I'm not an optics guy because I've got friends in both Patriot Front and in Blood Tribe, and they're totally diametrically opposed as far as optics go. I like both of them. I like both of their strategies. I like both of their approaches. But yeah, like I said in the video, we're not there yet. You can't, go marching around in your Hugo Boss outfit downtown and expect to win an election yet, unfortunately. Perhaps in maybe 10 more years, maybe 20 years max, you'll be able to do that. But yeah, for the time being, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I guess this goes to a little bit with the hiding your power level. I guess, what would you say to somebody who maybe has qualms or they feel maybe morally opposed to that kind of like withholding, or maybe makes them feel dishonest? I guess if you have any good answers for around that, or if somebody maybe is feeling that way, maybe also probably shouldn't run if they can't kind of grasp the strategy behind it.
I would say if you are, I'll be blunt real quick. Apologies to the audience if this offends you. It's not necessarily directed at anybody in particular. It's more of a general gripe. But if you are spurgy to the point of where you're incapable of hiding your power level altogether, don't run. Because you're going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person. And I get, you get in the heat of the moment and you decide to let things slip. I've done that in the past. I'm a little bit older now, a little more mature, so I'm probably not going to do that anymore. It just kind of depends on who is going to attack people that I care about, because this did happen recently. I was at one of the local city council meetings, and this one regular that's there decided to attack my son, and so I just went off on her. I probably shouldn't have, but yeah, if you attack somebody that I care about, yeah, I'm gonna pop off. And that's just how I am, unfortunately. I need to tamp down on that if I do decide to run again. But yeah, it's just a matter of, if you are going to be spurgy and you cannot hide your power level, like if the first thing out of your mouth is 6 million didn't die, it was only maybe 271,000. You're not going to go anywhere, unfortunately. Now, can you ease into that after a couple of weeks, after a couple of months, getting a feel out for how people sit, how people stand on different issues? Yeah, you could definitely do that. Like, we've met people at the local level, my local crew, we've met people that are in your age range, Atlas, and a little bit younger, that are aligned with our views. But you don't just jump into it. You kind of ease into it a little bit to kind of figure out, okay, well, are they cool? It's a matter of vetting people before you jump into those deeper things. And that's definitely something I always recommended people do. It's the onion approach. You've got people on the outside and you get a feel for them. You move them a little closer in. You get a feel for them still. You can move them a little more closer in. And then you can be a little more realistic with them at that point, once you're like fully aware that they are cool, they're calm, they're collected, they know what they're talking about, they're aligned with your values and your goals and things like that. Going back to your other question, I kind of addressed it earlier. But again, if you feel like you're being dishonest by hiding your power levels, again, think of it more as, you could still be true to your principles and your values, but just be aware of your audience and present your message in a way that connects with that particular audience. Like, I would talk to a group of college students different than I would talk to a group of retirees, for example.
Yeah.
I might say the same thing to them in essence, but I will present my message differently to the two different audiences, because you speak to the two different audiences in different ways.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I think there's kind of a popularized saying nowadays. It's kind of, called lurk more. And I encourage a lot of people to lurk more. And I think this is something that's just maybe also because of the general the information age and everything's kind of headlines and exacerbated. But the same thing applies with like these IRL, relationships. And you probably do want to wait until you are like entirely 100% without a doubt, completely sure that, this is a safe person to be able to maybe open up a little bit more as where I was at previously, maybe as where I'm at when I'm in front of the microphone, in front of an audience there. And I think that also might be something too, that I think is maybe some people just have it, some people just don't. I do think there is an element of, not that social skills are literally skills, but I do think that some people, just like athletics, have just a more natural grasp over being charismatic and able to navigate these social kind of circles. And some people who are really good at it are like some of the most cold-blooded, like ruthless people of all time. It's just because they understand the sociology of human beings. But thank you for that video.
But you can win by being a little more forceful, by sticking up for your values, by sticking up for your ideals, and by sticking up for our American culture. And that's what we all should embody. Whenever we run for office, those are the principles, those are the values that we should embody, and those will win. As long as we're firm in our beliefs, as long as we're firm in our convictions, we will be successful. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of different offices you can actually consider running for. It goes all the way from the level of a local board or commission, all the way up to a state legislator. In between, you have things like city council, county commission, sheriff, county auditor, county treasurer, county secretary, county clerk. All these offices are viable offices that you can consider running for. And most of them don't even require that much to actually run for them. Most of it is just a residency requirement and an age requirement. For example, sheriff, you don't actually have to be a law enforcement officer to actually run as a sheriff. In some cities, in some counties, and in some states, they have what's called a justice of the peace or magistrate. In these offices, you could run as a judge to oversee small minor cases. And that's a very powerful office that we should be looking at as well, in addition to school board. You could run for these offices or even consider trying to get appointed to these offices so that we have that counteraction towards that. Same thing with the school board. If you don't run for the school board, think about the kind of people that you're leaving to run for those offices. So we have to take those opportunities any way that we can, any chance that we get. Your first step is going to be going to either your local county clerk or your local city clerk and ask them what offices are coming up for election and how do I run for those offices. Get all the information you need as far as what kind of paperwork do I need to fill out, what kind of filing fee do I have to pay, and what steps do I have to go through to be able to successfully run for this particular office. Some offices will require primary, some don't. A lot of times these local offices at the city level and below are nonpartisan. So that means that there's usually not a primary process involved. It just means you run for one particular election, and as long as you're the top vote getter, you win. Sometimes there's a runoff where two people don't surpass 50%, so you end up having a runoff between the two top vote getters. But again, consider the various options that you have available. Your mileage may vary depending on what jurisdiction you're in, what type of offices are available. So again, your first step is going to be going to your local city clerk or your local county clerk, asking them what kind of positions are available for running, and then look into taking those steps. Because each one of these offices has their own particular impact on the local community, and we can't just leave it up to chance, letting other people take these offices when we should be in those roles.
So I want to stop it there because I got, well, two questions. One, the first was,
go ahead.
it's like the paperwork. How bad is the paperwork?
Oh, it's easy. Again, it depends on where you are. I can only say for the cities that I've lived in, but it's usually just one page. It asks you for your name, your address. It may ask you for who's going to be on your campaign committee. I talk about this a little bit later. I'll leave that for later. You may, so two things I was going to bring up too that I did not fit into this part of the video. You saw the image of the guy getting petition signatures. So oftentimes you'll have to collect petition signatures as well for some offices, and you might have a very strict time frame to be able to do that. Usually, if you do have to get signatures, it's based on the population that voted for the governor and some fraction thereof. So, for example, if I were to run for state legislator here in South Dakota, I think I'd have to collect X percentage of the people that voted for the governor in the last gubernatorial election, which I think was like 5,000 or something. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I think 5,000 signatures I got to collect within like a couple month time frame. I think 2 months here in South Dakota. So yeah, it's just a matter of being aware of those kind of requirements as well. You may end up running for an office where you don't have to get any signatures at all. Like when I ran in Cheyenne, didn't have to get any signatures. I just paid a $25 filing fee, I think, and then just filled out a one-page piece of paperwork with my name, address, what office I'm running for, and then a separate paper that talked about my campaign committee, which was just me and a guy I worked with. That's basically it. And then I was self-funded in my campaign. I got a couple of donations, but I wasn't really seeking out donations either. I figured I could fund it myself. Yeah, that's kind of the direction I went. And the other thing I was going to mention too, I mentioned in this clip about justices of the peace. So we all know the Iriana, I can't remember her last name now. Forgive me. The poor young lady that was stabbed in North Carolina.
Alina Zarutska.
Thank you. So the judge that let her out was an equivalent of a magistrate, a justice of the peace. And so those are positions, at least in North Carolina, that was a position that was appointed by the county party. So the county Democrat Party appointed that position. So you can get into positions like that as well, depending on your state, depending on your locality. If you get in good with the county board of Republicans or Democrats, whatever you happen to have there, you could get on those positions as well. And that's definitely a way to go about doing that, because look at the power that woman had. She was able to let that guy out however many times until he ultimately killed Iryana. And we need to take those positions instead.
Yeah, there's like something like 40 times or something like that. And then the filing fees, and that's actually in donations too. Is this a good spot to stop and talk about donations and filing fees?
Yeah, I think I'd talk about donations a little bit later, because Dave has a section about that himself. Doug covers it way better than I could. But like I said, the filing fees, I think the worst filing fee that I've ever seen was $750, but that was to run as a U.S. congressman. Okay. And I'm not suggesting anybody run for federal office, just run for local and state level offices. Much cheaper to do those. You don't have to raise as much money, and you could win just by door knocking, basically. So
interesting. And probably better to start local, because you'll probably get more funding if you're successful local to maybe move higher up if you so wish.
Yeah.
And there was one question in here for you too. Get it here from Lord of the Rings. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Well, I basically answered that towards the beginning. Lord of the Ring might have missed that, but yeah, if you feel like you're not comfortable running for office, don't. I'm not forcing anybody to run for office, but what you can do, and I will cover this later in the video, you can help other people's campaigns. That's definitely where you could fit in. If you feel like getting involved to the extent of wanting to help somebody win, but you don't feel like running yourself, that's totally fine. You can help out other people's campaigns. Go door knocking, fundraising, passing out flyers, passing out signs, do the petition signatures, collect those petition signatures as well if you need to. And those are a lot of ways that you can help out local guys.
Yeah, and I would imagine that's probably how the majority of people feel. They would much rather assist somebody getting into office rather than be the one who is, faces being plastered everywhere. But thank you, Lord, for the question.
That's totally fine. Totally fine. Yeah. And then, no, I'm not related to the Benny guy, according to Jonathan.
You're not related to Benny. I was curious if that was about you or if it was about Dave Reilly. Like Dave Reilly looks a lot closer to Benny than you do. But no, I think
I will say in Dave's defense, I took some clips of him that were really, really old. He has lost a lot of weight. So he was chubby. He used to be really, really chubby, but he put in the work and he dropped a lot of weight. So I think that should be applauded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he went from it looked like he was close to 300. He's probably looking down to maybe 180 or so. I don't know how tall he is, but just from a personal trainer looking at him. So congrats for him on that.
Yeah.
Here's the rest of it.
Now, before you run for office, there's several different things you're going to want to consider. Number one, you got to be a good public speaker. If you can't speak with confidence, you're not going to sell your message. People have to believe that you actually mean what you say. This comes from practice. A lot of times, what I recommend that people do is record yourself on your voice recorder on your phone. Record yourself speaking for a minute or two. Get better and better at practicing that sort of thing. Speak to small audiences, speak to your family members, speak to friends, speak to coworkers about any subject at all. Just kind of get used to that public speaking, standing in front of an audience, and eventually get to bigger and bigger audiences to where you get a little more comfortable with this public speaking skills. The other thing you're going to work on is personal appearance. As you can see, I'm wearing a nicely tailored suit. It's not to say that you have to have an entire closet full of such suits, but you want to have at least one good suit so that when you go out there and you're giving your spiel to your local constituency, they see that you actually mean business. If you go in there with t-shirt and shorts on, they're not going to take you as seriously. If you go in there looking like a slob, it's not going to sell real well. Make sure you get a well-fitted suit that makes you look good for your body type. You don't want to look like you're too frumpy or anything like that. You want to make sure it's well-fitted. The other thing you want to work on too is your personal messaging. What is your brand? And this is good for anybody across the board, whether you're running for office or not. You have to sell yourself to other people constantly. So what is your brand? What do you stand for? What are your ideals? What are your beliefs? What do you care about? And get used to presenting that to people, because when the press comes up to you at an event and you have no idea what to tell them, you're going to end up sitting there sputtering without any idea of what to tell them. So for example, if press came up to me right now and said, Mr. Johnson, why are you running for office? Which sounds more professional? It's because like
This is me listening to Zeb Boykin's stream. Just wanted to add that in there.
obviously this is not going to work out very well for you. So it'd be more professional to say, and get used to saying, well, the things I care about is I want to see our community do better. I want to see our people getting jobs. I want to see jobs and manufacturing coming back to our community. I want to see our community thrive and grow and our traditions preserved. That's what I want to see for our community. And when you present yourself like that, you will sell your message. So practice public speaking, do it in front of a mirror, do it with your voice recorder. And then also just consider the fact that you could just do these sort of things as often as you can. Get that practice in, get those reps in. Join organizations that are involved with public speaking. You could even go to the local city council. You can even go to the local county commission and just sign up to speak publicly on any subject that you want. Now, oftentimes they will limit you to maybe 2 or 3 minutes. That's perfectly fine. It gets you used to speaking impromptu and in speaking in a very terse and succinct way to get your message across, which is vitally important if you run for office.
One thing I was going to add in there from my own end actually was, and I think even Dadsky said this a little bit earlier in the chat, the majority of the way that I developed my public speaking skills was a long line of different events and things I was a part of that was all about public speaking. So I went from basically doing I was an officer in FFA, I was in NHS, National Honor Society, but the one that helped me the most was when I was bartending, because it was always having to deal with random people who weren't always going to be friendly with me all the time. And it's you never know who you're getting. They could be black, they could be white, they could be whatever, and they could be all from different walks of life. And that heavily bolstered my ability to actually speak to people, my public speaking ability. So if anybody might be struggling with it, even on top of that, I know not everybody wants to do a sales job, but any job like that that's kind of in the service industry will help refine your ability to deal with people. So long as you're taking it seriously and you're not kind of just whisking it away like you're working at Walmart or something. But did you have anything else you wanted to expand on here?
Yeah, I'll also toss out the recommendation of, there's a group called Toastmasters International. So it's a debate organization for adults, and they're usually found in every major city, a lot of smaller cities as well. You can attend their meetings as a guest for as long as you want. And even as a guest, you'll have an opportunity to speak at the meetings and kind of get that practice in as well. And again, it's another opportunity to network as well. So I would say, yes, look into things like that. If you don't feel like doing a sales job or a service job or things like that, if you don't feel comfortable speaking in front of groups at work or groups at school or things along those lines, then you could look into these organizations on the side like that. You mentioned 4-H. You said 4-H, right?
Well, not 4-H, but that's similar though. Yeah, 4-H. Anything that puts you out there, that having to talk with people. For me, it was FFA. Yeah. Very, very similar to 4-H.
Or FFA, sorry, FFA. Yep. Yeah. So any organizations like that you might potentially be involved with. Like I mentioned before, one of the organizations that I volunteer with is Junior Achievement. The purpose of Junior Achievement is to teach young people from K through 12 about finances, personal finances, budgeting, money management, things like that. Something that I very strongly believe in because that's my background. And so I tend to focus on volunteering with high school students because I figure that's the best time to get them, to make sure that they don't make the mistakes of getting huge credit card debt.
Yep.
And so that gives me an opportunity to speak with them as well and get some of that public speaking in at that level, at those grade levels as well.
Yeah, no, perfect. And great advice too. Thank you for that.
So there have been plenty of campaigns that have lost or gotten charges filed against them, which you don't want to have happen, just because you missed certain milestones and missed certain deadlines, or didn't fill out your paperwork correctly. So it's vitally important that, number one, you get a good group of volunteers together. These are volunteers that are going to help you with your campaign, whether it's filling out the paperwork and making sure things stay on track. Oftentimes, when you decide to file as a candidate, you will have to have a campaign committee anyway, which will require you to have a clerk or recorder and also a treasurer. And so these are going to be friends of yours, maybe family members. It could even be you in one of those spots as well. But generally, they will require some other people to sign on to make sure that you're on the up and up. As long as you cross your T's, dot your I's, you'll be fine. Just make sure you pay attention to things, keep up with your deadlines, keep up with your obligations.
Think about creative ways to fund your campaign. Now, there are also things to be aware of, like campaign financing limits. Depending on the office that you're going to be running for, there will be limits on how much money you can raise. Usually, the lower the office, the less amount of money you're allowed. So for like a local school board, county commissioner, city council, usually the limit is about $1,000 a person and $1,000 a corporation. So you want to be aware of that. If you need to raise $50,000, that means that you need 50 people willing to max out their donation to $1,000. Now, sometimes a way that you can get more money is if you have somebody willing to donate to you, the maximum, let's say $1,000, they can donate to you, their wife could donate to you, and if they own a business, their business can donate to you too. So that's from one person who would be able to give $1,000, you can get three entities, essentially, the husband, wife, and their business to donate to you. And so that's something to take into consideration when it comes to securing funding.
You want to make sure that you get a good solid group of volunteers together. So you'll have volunteers that work on the campaign as far as the behind the scenes, maybe somebody that's helping you out with your website, maybe somebody who's helping you out with your social media. But you'll also have people that are going to be going out there on the streets. Your ground game is vitally important, especially for people like us running for local office. I'm telling you, this is going to be your make and break. If you have a good group of volunteers, try to get 4 or 5 other people in your local community. If you live in a small town, if you get 4 or 5 people together with you and you're able to knock every door in your constituency, you will more than likely win because they get that face-to-face with you. Make sure you choose some volunteers that can be fairly comfortable describing your position in about a minute or two. A lot of times they won't even see the person when they knock on the door. A lot of times you just end up dropping off some paperwork, which is what I ended up doing when I was helping out the mayor here. So you'll just go up to the door, you might knock real quick, nobody answers, you just leave a flyer in the door, and then you just move on. Do be aware of any sort of like local laws or ordinances on that sort of thing. It is a federal offense to leave mail in somebody's mailbox, so don't do that. But as far as like, can you leave mailers in their door, like between their door handle or their dorm frame, make sure that you're all on the up and up. Everything that you do is going to be vitally scrutinized, so you want to make sure you're doing everything correctly. Like I said, that's the boring part, but this is going to be very important for you to win. If you don't have this ground game set up, if you don't have your paperwork set up, it's not going to work out in your favor. So just make sure you do these sort of things, make sure you keep up on it so that you can win and you can be successful.
So for the donations in particular, let's walk through that a little bit. I would imagine that you wouldn't want people to donate to your personal Venmo, right? You'd probably want some kind of way that you're setting that up that you can provide a ledger for. And maybe you can walk us through a little bit of how you would set something up like that.
Yeah, Dave suggests you don't need to split it out, but I would highly recommend you split it out. What I did with my particular situations, I just called my bank and set up a new account specific for my campaign. And any funds that came in, which I made like $100 in donations, like 2 people gave me $50, which is fine. So any donations that come in, they go in that account. Any expenses that I have going out, they come out of that. I paid myself a loan of like $5,000 as well. So I threw $5,000 in that account. And then any expenses for media or flyers or signs or anything like that, I just took it out of that. And that way everything was under one roof. And I was able to, then I could just print it out at the end of the campaign and present it with my finance report. Because as I suggest here, you will have finance reports that you have to file either periodically throughout the campaign or at certain stages in the campaign. So like, usually like a month before the campaign's done, month after the campaign's done is usually a pretty common one. Otherwise, if the campaign goes for like more than a year, maybe it's usually like once a quarter, you have to file a campaign report. And that's basically just saying, these are the list of people that gave me donations. And these are the expenses that we paid out. And you could go online at the local county level and ask for the finance reports for the recent elections and get an idea of what they look like. Like I looked at our mayor's finance report here in Sioux Falls, and yeah, it's very straightforward. It's just, like I said, income, expenses, and a separate page to list out the donations. Now, oftentimes states, and I don't think even the federal level, because a lot of times the states follow the federal level laws. If the donation is less than X amount of dollars, I want to say $50, but if it's less than a certain threshold, you don't even have to record it. They call that a pass the hat. And so if you got a bunch of people that give you less than $50, you don't have to write down, okay, well, Michael Jones and Sierra Morgan and blah, blah, blah gave me $5 and $3 and $2. You just throw it all in there and say, like, at this event, like at this fundraiser event at Chuck E. Cheese's, I raised $552. And you just pop that in there as like one solid amount. Again, if you do have any amounts that come in over that, then you do have to, by law, you do have to regulate and keep track of that separately. But otherwise, yeah, just, follow the laws, mind your P's and Q's, you'll be totally fine.
Interesting. That's one thing I was curious about. If you did any kind of like event or something that maybe like pulled like cash donations together, and then you don't like get a name, something like you had said, you get $500 at the end of the event. That's when you would file it like donation given by or came from this event, or I guess how would you write that down?
Yeah, so that's what I would do. Like, for example, we had a guy that was running for governor in Wyoming, and I went to one of his events once, and he was just kind of giving his spiel about, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I'm going to work on. And at the end, he did the pass the hat thing, and so I gave him $3. And I think everybody gave him like $3 or $5 or something like that. And so how he would record that in his ledger is he would say, I got a donation of $35 from the fundraiser at the local library, kind of thing. And again, it depends on where you live. So follow the laws of your state and your local counties and things like that, whatever they require. Like, that's why I suggested look at the finance report for some other campaigns that have gone before you, the elections have gone before you, and just follow their example, and you should be fine.
Perfect. You could probably also see, like, I would imagine maybe you can see like how much they spent on marketing. Can you also see the expanded like expenses?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Now, it depends on how detailed they are, but you will see at least those general categories. You'll see marketing and utilities and maybe office rents if they've got like an office location. So you'll see those bigger categories. It may not develop down to like the minuscule level of saying like specifically we bought $5 worth of staples and we bought $10 worth of paper or something like that. But it might just say like we spent $50 at Office Depot, kind of thing.
Well, I guess then my next extension from there would be, this would be a bit more of a personal question. I guess for somebody like myself who would be considering running, how then would that also then, how do you write that all out on income taxes? You don't need to give like a full kind of breakdown, but I would imagine there is an element that you would have to also incorporate the donations on your own personal income taxes, like write those off, or is that just an entirely separate entity?
Entirely separate, because this money is not income to you personally, or should be income to you personally. That's where you'll get in trouble.
Okay.
If you keep the money separate. And so, for example, I think what you're getting at is, let's say I got $50,000 in donations and I only spent $30,000 by the end of the campaign.
Right.
What do I do with the other $20,000? I can donate it to another campaign. I can donate it to an NGO or a nonprofit. There's different ways I can dispose of it in a legal manner that won't get me in trouble.
Interesting. So I was also curious too, like on the other end of like, if you are being audited, right? If they're tracking expense and it's like, well, he's clearly spending more money than what he's making in income. How would you could probably just show that as like, oh, these are political expenses coming from these political accounts. Like, this is my political stuff. Maybe I'm being a bit.
Well, again, I mean, the IRS or a state level revenue office is not going to audit you on your campaign stuff. It's completely separate. If anybody's going to look at your stuff, it's going to be the Secretary of State's office, because it falls under elections and campaigns and things like that. And that's why I'm saying, just keep it separate, keep tabs of everything, make sure you got everything categorized properly, and you'll be fine. Dispose of the money properly if you have leftover money at the end. If you loaned money to yourself, like in my example, I loaned myself $5,000 for my campaign. The money I had left over, which I think was like $2,000 or something like that, I just gave back to myself because that was a loan that I paid to myself. So that's a little bit different. You treat that a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you get donations from people other than yourself, then yeah, you have to dispose of that a certain way.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you for that. That was very enlightening.
Now comes the fun part. Let's put it all together. You're in the campaign now. That's going to be the make or break time. So once you're in the campaign, like I said before, make sure you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's, but be aware of different events that are going on. You might get invited to different forums, different panel discussions, different, even potentially debates that you might be attending. Go to every one that you can. Get your name out there, get your face out there, get that practice as far as public speaking, because every time you go to one of these, say the county Republicans meet up, the county Democrats meet up, whatever the case might be, every chance that you get an opportunity to go out there and spread your message, take it. You might get invited to various social mixers, depending on how big your city is. You know, there might be like little functions at like the museum or at the local library where you get a chance to rub elbows with some of the bigger players in the local community. Take those opportunities as well. Again, be well dressed, present yourself well, and when you go, a little bit of tips, make sure that you keep your hands free. You know, there might be hors d'oeuvres, there might be drinks that they're offering at these sort of things, but make sure you keep at least one hand free so that you can shake hands. Bring business cards with you so you can hand out those business cards to people. And every chance that you get, give them your spiel real quick, maybe about a minute or so, but also give them an opportunity to speak about themselves. People love to talk about themselves, and they feel like you're actually listening to them. It's very ironic, but they feel like you're actually listening to them if you let them speak. So
I'll step in and talk a little bit while he's away for a second. Just on this element actually in itself, because this was something that I had to deal with quite a lot as a server, particularly because, you know, that this is you're dancing for your tip, right? And so some people, they might not even tip based on like how the food was. They tip based on like how good the service was. They tip based on how friendly you're going to be to them, how interesting you're going to make their experience be. And so this is one thing I kind of had to counterbalance through working, you know, because you can't do it all the time or you burn yourself out. And someone like me who doesn't have much of a social battery, it was a very exhausting thing to deal with. That's why I walked away from it, to be honest. This is great advice, though. The idea here is you're trying to open yourself up to let them talk to you. You want to let them kind of invest into you a little bit. And some of the best relationships, even that I have now, were great relationships that I built while I was bartending and serving. These people, I'll remember, I'll walk back into the hometown I'm from, and as long as they're still alive, you know, bless their heart, they'll recognize me and we'll pick back up right where we were at, you know, 10 years ago. And so there is an element that you want to be able to not only invest yourself into them, but also let them invest into you a little bit. And again, coming from me personally too, it might be draining a little bit on your social battery, but you need to be doing it, you know, as much as you possibly can. We'll go back to the video here.
them those opportunities as well. Don't let them control the conversation entirely, but do let them feel like they're being heard and listened to. And be sincere about it, obviously. I mean, there's plenty of politicians that do this as a living, and they make a very good skill out of it, and they're not really that sincere, as we all know. But if you do that, it will work out better for your favor. It will work out better for your chances of success, being somebody who's actually listening to the people speak. This is the fun time. Personally, I like this aspect of running for office, is actually going out there, meeting people, talking to them, finding out what makes them tick, and presenting your information to them. Now, when you go out there, you're going to have your own ideals, you're going to have your own principles and things like that. But I will say, for your success, be malleable to an extent. Don't want to be like somebody that's just entirely fictitious, somebody who's entirely, well, I speak to person A and I talk to them this way, I speak to person B and I talk to them this way instead. But be willing to be open to other perspectives and other positions. So when you talk to a guy who's working in a blue-collar job and he says his problems are A, B, and C, hear him out, respond to those problems, give him some potential solutions that you plan to present that will deal with those problems. But then you go talk to person B, and they're a white-collar business guy. He's going to have a different set of problems. Listen to his problems, hear him out, give him some potential solutions, There might be clashes between the two presentations that you give. Perfectly fine. Just as long as you're getting those perspectives in and you're giving your perspective out, that's what's going to be the most important part. So again, when you get to the campaign, like I said, this is the fun part. This is the time when you can really shine. This is your make and break time. The more effort you put into this aspect, the more likely you will succeed. Win or lose, you're not done with your campaign yet. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of things you still have to take care of as far as paperwork goes. So you have to understand that there's probably going to be end of campaign reports to file as far as your finances go. You want to make sure you take care of that, because if you miss that, the worst thing that could happen is you end up getting popped for something stupid for missing some paperwork. So make sure you take care of that. But also, you'll want to consider various strategies. What worked, what didn't work. Make sure to take accountability of that sort of process with your volunteers and kind of ask them to go over some of the things that you've done well and things that maybe didn't work out so well. You know, did you knock enough doors? Did you convert enough people that you were knocking their door into voters for your cause? Could I have spent more on social media? Could have I spent more on billboards or yard signs, et cetera, et cetera? So you want to make sure you take these sort of things into account.
So once you've understood your political landscape, you've raised funding, you've developed relationships with people politically in your area that can give you support, they can give you endorsements. You might also want to get involved with a political consulting firm, right? If you're able to raise the money to run, then you're going to want to hire somebody to help you run your social media, to help you do your video marketing, your video advertising, advertising placement on banner ads on websites, perhaps a billboard. And so there are a lot of really good campaign consulting firms. I do that freelance, and I have a number of other companies that are willing to work with guys like us to run for office. So if you want help in that regard, please reach out to me and I will point you in the direction so that you can find a group of people that will help you run. But having that kind of backup, having somebody whose job it is to do polling, to look at the numbers, to help you come up with fundraising lists, door knocking lists, that's all something that a campaign consulting company can do for you, and it is very valuable. So if you wind up hiring a campaign consulting company or doing it on your own, frankly, there are certain things that do work really well. Number one is obviously door knocking. It is pressing the flesh, going around, knocking on doors and introducing yourself. Now, depending on which position that you're running for, you might have a very large geographic area that you have to cover. And so in those cases, mailers and digital advertising work really well, as does traditional phone calls. Getting phone lists and making phone calls to these people, introducing yourself, who you are, what you're running on, what your issues are, what you'll do for them. And that's very useful. When I ran, I made more phone calls than I can count. I was out with my wife door knocking every day for weeks and weeks on end, giving out people yard signs, giving them literature, directing people to my website. And so, that's something else to consider.
Before you get into that, the political consulting firm thing is not something I hear talked about a lot. And it also, I guess when I hear it too, I also kind of feel a little concerned as well. Is it easy to hide your power level when dealing with a consulting firm? When you're inviting a third party into your kind of network, I guess. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that? I don't know if you would use a political consulting firm, if you have any ideas, if that's as beneficial as Dave Reilly's making it out to be.
Yeah, I did not use a consultant in my campaign when I ran. Again, at the local level, I don't think it's really necessary to do it. If you feel like you need people to take care of certain aspects of your campaign that you don't have the time to do or don't have the skill to do, you could probably find a volunteer to help out with that. Like you mentioned, somebody to run your media, somebody to do your videos. That's stuff I like to do freelance in my own free time, and I've done it for free. But so it's just a matter of just finding people that have those skills. And again, it's all about networking. So you network and you figure out, okay, well, this guy likes to do this guy likes to do that. And then how can I use that to my advantage in my campaigns? And at the local level, you probably won't even have to use a political consultant, I would say. You could bounce some ideas off of them, just very, very general level. Because I did reach out when I was considering running for senator here in South Dakota. I probably won't now, or at least not right away. I have until 2028 to decide if I'm going to. But
Okay.
Senator John Thune is the majority leader of the Senate. He's kind of a dick. So I figured I would run against him. I would probably lose. But if I ran as a Democrat, I could at least get on the stage against him, is what was my thinking.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to the question, what Dave talks about there, you can always bounce ideas off somebody like that. So I did reach out to him, and I reached out to Invictus. If you guys don't know who Augustus Invictus is, he's a guy who ran for Senate down in Florida. And I reached out to both of them to get their ideas as far as like, what did you do? What kind of advice would you give me? Blah, blah, this, and the other kind of stuff. And so that was really good. They're in our network. They're in our movement. So they were people I was able to reach out to and just for free, get these ideas off of them and just kind of figure out, okay, well, is this going to be something that I even feel comfortable doing? Can I do it? What all am I going to have to do to be able to accomplish this, that, and the other kind of stuff? So you don't have to jump into hiring a political consultant necessarily. You could bounce the ideas off of certain people first and kind of get a feel for, okay, well, am I on the right track? Like if I decide, let's say I decide I want to run for sheriff, something like that. And I present my issues to them and I say, well, this is what I want to do, this, that, and the other kind of stuff. And they come back at me and say, well, you're going to do this, this, and this. I can weigh that and figure out, okay, well, do I want to pay the $5,000 retainer or whatever they're going to charge me to kind of have them help me get the polling data? Because polling data is going to be important the bigger the office is. So I will say that's something you'll probably want to reach out to a consultant on. They'll have access to the demographic data that you may not necessarily have access to at the low level. You can get a lot of the same data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics or from Department of Labor, but if you want to get more detailed specifics from there, you'll have to get certain databases that you probably won't have access to as a civilian.
Yeah.
Basically. So yeah, there is that aspect. Or there's also certain apps. There's a lot of apps that are out there now, political apps that kind of help you figure out, okay, well, in my district here, I've got, let's say I'm running as a Republican.
Yeah.
I've got 550 households all spread throughout my district. And these are where they're located. And it gives you like a map and shows you, okay, well, hit this place, hit this place, hit this place. And you can actually check it off as you go along. So I helped out one of our local guys here with his app. I think it was called Footprints. I can't remember the exact name of it, but basically the idea was he had already input the houses that he wanted to hit. And all I had to do was just go up to the house, knock, nobody answered. I just left some paperwork, move on to the next house. And I hit probably 1,000 some houses for him that way. So that's something you could do as well.
Okay. Okay, that's solid.
And he won.
Interesting. Okay. We have more from Dadsky about John Thune. I think John Thune is, if I remember right, is that not who the majority leader is right now in the Senate?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, he's doesn't seem like the best person. I think the only thing I know of him that I can think of off the top of my head was he was one of the people who was holding back the Matt Gaetz appointment, I think at the beginning of the campaign. Yeah. One of the few who was unwilling to move to it.
Good. So real quick, the biggest thing that I think is going to hurt him in 2028 is the fact that he has deliberately kept the Senate open during the last several months in order to prevent recess appointments. Now that's within his power to do if he wants to do that. But considering the fact that Trump is a Republican, ostensibly, and Thune is a Republican, they should be working together, because if Trump can't get appointments through the Senate, he has to be able to get them through the recess process. And if anybody's not familiar, the recess process is basically you get appointed to that position for about a year, I think it is. And by the end of the next year, you either have to have it reappointed or hopefully by then you've got somebody confirmed for that role. And so he is deliberately keeping the Senate open to prevent Trump from getting those recess appointments in. So that's why I was kind of going to use against him when 2028 came around and be like, you remember back in 2025 when he kept open the Senate and would not let any of his recess appointments go through, and we're not able to get any of the MAGA stuff through, even though I know the reason why we're not getting MAGA through is because Trump is not very America first. But it doesn't matter. I can use that to my advantage against Thune.
Yeah. No, you spot on, nailed it. That's what I would have remembered from him, because it had been floated out because everyone was so ready for Matt Gaetz to be opposed at the highest level, that they were like, well, just run Matt Gaetz through a recess appointment and then use the loophole where we're just going to put him in as a recess appointment once a year. We'll do it until the term's over. But John Thune obviously standing in the way of that. And then again, just one of many ways somebody in a position who you barely know from, a different state is doing something very meaningful, holding up the entire political process. And I think that goes to show on all different levels. I think maybe a broader point here too, which is that just by proxy of us, a lot of us giving up blackpilling and not getting off the couch, somebody's going to fill those positions, whether it's an enemy or an idiot or just someone impotent. They are filling those positions. And that's kind of what we're looking at now, is so many of our guys are on the outside looking in to a system we want to afflict with change, but none of our guys are in it. So it's kind of like finding our way back inside, if you will. But here's the video.
Yeah.
Additionally, you want to make sure that you come up with your own strategies, things that worked in your situation that you can actually pass on to other people. Because other people are going to be looking to you as an example. Whether you win or lose, you are an exemplar to other people in the same cause. So if these things worked for you, they'll be able to accomplish them again by repeating a lot of the things that you did. If these things didn't work for you, well, that's things they could avoid doing in the future to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes. And ultimately what it comes down to is you want to make sure that you have ideally accomplished some sort of goal that you set out for yourself. So even though you might not have necessarily won, you at least pushed a message. For example, maybe you ran for school board because you wanted to highlight certain books that were in the library of the school, or certain curricula, certain classes that were being taught to kids in the schools. So if you push these sort of issues and get them put into the mainstream and get them put into the local media, you're still won in a sense, because that's still going to get talked about and that's still going to be an issue that goes forward. And just because you lost doesn't mean you shouldn't try again, because a lot of times people take multiple efforts and multiple times running for the same office over and over again before they're able to accomplish what they set out to accomplish as far as winning that office. So ultimately, I want you to take away from this whole project that I'm trying to encourage you to go out there and do something for your community. Go out there and try to accomplish something that serves as a benefit to our people and serves as a benefit to our culture and to our cause. Again, you may not win, but that's not the ultimate goal of this whole situation. The ultimate goal is to push the message and get things changed in the more appropriate direction. So again, go out there, try your best. And no matter what, we're behind you 110%. You just got to put your foot out there and go for it.
That's a great video, brother. And for anybody who is turn this down a little bit, for anybody who is wanting to find this video, I might just put it actually. Apologize. For anybody who wants to find this video, the link is in the description below. Well, there's more here. Apologize. I thought it was over. My bad, Mr. Johnson.
This project is for those who are actually interested in running for office. Now, I do understand that the things I've talked about during this video, it might give you some pause for thought as to whether running for politics is right for you. Don't feel pressured and don't feel obligated to run for local office. However, there's other opportunities, as I mentioned before, that you have to be involved in local politics. Even just showing up to the local city council or county commission meetings and saying your piece. That's a huge plus that you could take, especially if you get other people to go with you, or helping other people with their campaigns. So for example, let's say you live in a small town of 5,000 people, and you've got 3 or 4 friends. You don't feel like running for office, but you got a buddy who definitely feels like he could run for office. So what you do is you help your buddy get elected to office. You go around and door knock for him. You go around and try to fundraise for him. You go around and set up stuff for him, handing out yard signs, whatever the case might be. That's a role that you can take upon yourself that's less impactful, less direct, less public facing, but still helps us achieve our goals. I cannot emphasize this enough. I want to encourage you to do what you can. Do what you're able to do. We need to get off our asses. We need to get off the computers. We need to get out of our houses. We need to do something to push back against the direction that things are going. Because if we don't, who will? It's ultimately on us. It's on our shoulders. Our children, our grandchildren, the generations that come after us, they're not going to be able to fight this fight because they're not here yet. They're not old enough yet. It has to be us. We have to take that step.
If you do decide to run, and you want to make a difference by doing politics in that way, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to me. You could reach out to James. I've got a lot of resources available, whether it's a consulting company, graphic designers, video production. You're going to need help doing this kind of stuff. So feel free to reach out, and I'll help you as best as I can. Good luck.
And so again, I just want to encourage all of you, do what you can. Good luck, God bless, and may we ultimately be successful.
But this is a great video. This is a lot of substantive information in there. What I was saying before, you can find the link to this video in the description as well below if you want to keep that, save that, watch it again, keep it in your pocket for in 2 years when you decide to run and you need to get a refresher on all the things you need to be doing, or when you're getting ready to prepare for running. That was a great guide. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for putting that together. Put a lot of good work into that. And I'll go ahead.
So a lot of people get a good use out of it.
Yes, definitely. Let me swing over here real quick. I'm going to boost your cam back up, make it bigger for everybody to see here. And so I guess just kind of open it up for anything else that you wanted to expand upon that maybe you didn't include in that video that, maybe else people might have questions about too.
Sure. Well, a couple of things that I added to our little prep. Let's see here.
Yeah.
So I said here, using surrogates to attack your opposition if they look particularly weak on an issue or personal scandal. So basically what I'm talking about there, you want to avoid as much as possible getting into fights with people, especially online. That was something that I wish I had not done. And had I had the opportunity to do it over again, I would not have done that. You want to keep things, limit your interactions on social media, keep it vague in general. There is this lady that's ran for city council. She's actually on the city council back in my hometown, Aurora, Colorado. And she made big waves because of going against the Tren de Agua people, if you remember hearing about that a couple months back.
Yep.
But looking at her social media on Facebook and I think on X as well, she hardly says anything. And I think that's what we should take away from that is you can be bombastic, you can be forceful in your principles and your ideals in person or with the media as far as doing interviews and things like that. But on your social media, keep it vague. Keep it very general, keep it very vague. You'll notice that a lot of times most politicians do that. And it's successful because it doesn't piss off as many people. So somebody, say Senator Thune, for example, he'll post something on the Senate. We just recently passed bill, blah, 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 and we're looking forward to this, that, and the other. And he just leaves it at that, or his media guy, whoever happens to be. Yeah. And, below it will be a bunch of people that post like, you suck, you need to quit, resign, you need to go away, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't interact with them. He just, his campaign or his media guy or social media guy does not interact with those comments whatsoever. You kind of have to be the same way, because the more you attack, the worse you look, especially us as nationalists. We're already under the microscope anyway. So just be aware that if you get feisty online, it's going to be used against you. So if at all possible, again, keep it vague. If you see a lot of the same type of criticism coming in on a particular subject, you could make a separate post in a positive way on that particular subject. Like let's say I run for office and I get a bunch of people posting about my Patriot Front arrest. Oh, you're a white nationalist, this, that, and the other kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. I would respond, for example, by pointing out that a lot of the civil rights era icons were also arrested for civil disobedience, and they went on to serve in Congress, and they went on to serve in Congress for decades. Yeah. So me getting arrested for parading without a permit is along the same lines. Like I'm in the same boat as those civil rights icons, and I would frame it that way, for example.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to go about it. Yeah, the whole idea, I think, with the hiding your power level, I think, has got to be a continual, repeated message as well, too. Because especially when you do see, at this point now as well, like with the Young Republicans group chat leak and stuff, too, you would think that there would already be a healthy dose of people understanding that already. And given that we understand just like how much they will do to snuff out anybody who may be any level of a threat to the establishment or to anything that's against globalism or global homo at all, it's still, to me, it's almost kind of shocking that we're still getting guys, being outed for like the most minor of texts. And it's like, you had to have known that, right? You had to have known if you're sending this to a group chat, 20 people could take a screenshot of that. You have to be smarter with stuff like that. But great advice, man. And you had a post here. Let me find this. It's on the outline, actually. I want to put this up on screen for people to look at here. Let me switch this back over. Apologize. I need to switch this one off. Okay. So for this one in particular, this post here, you kind of acknowledge the blackpilling element of it, right? This politics is fake and gay. And so I guess if you wanted to speak a bit more to that, because I think that, if anything, probably is the number one reason why people aren't getting involved, is they don't see the value in it at all. And what kind of maybe broke you out of that, right? You knowing that it's kind of like, it sucks, but still, what gave you the motivation to do it regardless?
Let's say seeing the winds of change. So, by 2016, Trump had gotten into office. We saw how things worked out after that, both good and bad. So the good is, okay, well, nationalism's on the rise. Awesome. The bad is, well, remember what happened with Charlottesville, unfortunately. So it wasn't quite on the upward trajectory securely at that point. And then we took a big step back once Biden won, depending on how you look at it. And then now we're trying to make up that lost ground now that Trump is back in office. Trump is a symptom of the issues, and he is, like I said before, I don't particularly like the guy. I stopped supporting him back in 2017 personally, but he is a symptom of the illness. And the illness is people are tired of the globalism, tired of the endless wars, tired of all this sort of stuff. And so they need somebody that's a nationalist. And I think we are primed for the opportunity for some people to start running as, what I would ideally see is people running as a nationalist who is socially conservative, but also economically liberal, in the sense of basically being a national socialist at that point, but not in so many words, because obviously national socialist is still a no word. So you don't want to run as that. That's why I coined the term for myself. I coined the term national populist, because I want to get across the idea that I'm a nationalist and I care about the masses. And I want to have policies that favor the masses of America. And by Americans, I mean white Americans, obviously. But if I have to clarify that. But so it's just a matter of knowing how to frame things in a way. I said it before, I'll say it again, knowing your audience and how to frame your ideals in a way that appeals to them. So I've even talked to, at this local level, I've talked to liberals. There's this one older liberal that was running the precursor to the, what do you call them? The No Kings rallies. And so I was able to sit down and talk with her about a lot of things. And she was able to agree with me about 60 or 70% of things because of how I framed things to her. And she largely agreed with me because I was like, this is what's going on in the world. And this is what we need to address, or we're going to get kind of screwed. And so it's just a matter of, I did that purposely because I wanted to know, can I talk to a liberal in a way that gets through to them? Because if I can't, then I can't run as a Democrat and I can't appeal to independents. And I probably won't appeal to Republicans either. So if I'm not able to do that, that's why I wanted to test myself out, see if I could actually do that. Granted, that's one person, but even when I went to one of the rallies and I interviewed a bunch of people there, I was still able to talk to about 2 other people in a reasonable, rational way and kind of get their viewpoints back and kind of dissect what they were talking about and get my viewpoints out to them, and had some pretty good discussions with them as well.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's one thing that I think I've, even in my career of, not political by any means, but there would be times where those kind of conversations would come across, right? Political ones. And I got to admit too, I'm still not even the best of navigating those waters with somebody who is going to disagree with what you may want to say. And so you kind of just, like, for me, it ultimately was like, I got to a point where I was like, oh, really? That happened? I had no idea. even though I know full well aware of like the news story they're bringing up or all of it, just finding ways that I don't have to be abrasive, right? Or in navigating a conversation that doesn't result in a net negative with you. And for me, that would have been the tip. And
A
with
lot of times it's
politics,
just a
it'd be
matter.
voting. But go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just a matter of being Socratic. So if people aren't familiar with the Socratic method, that's you asking questions of them to get them to give you answers. If you take that approach, it puts the ball in their court to say, like, well, tell me about. So, like, for example, when I went to the King's rally, I asked them, well, I see you're carrying a sign that talks about USAID. What do you know about USAID? What do you know what they do? What do you know what they help out with? This, that, and the other kind of stuff. She gave me her little spiel. This was a different lady, by the way. She gave me her little spiel, and then I repeated back to her. I was like, well, were you aware that USAID often violates the sovereignty of foreign nations by imposing certain requirements on them that limits what their people are able to accomplish within their own nation? Are you familiar with that? No, I had no idea that was going on. I was like, well, you have to be aware that USAID is going around and they have these policies and programs in place that basically tie the hands of the local populations in those nations they work in. So just be aware that this USA that you're championing may not necessarily be as nice and good as you think it is, and just kind of go from that point.
Yeah. No, and that might be another point that trying to get it buried here, but having like a very robust and comprehensive understanding of the issues that you plan to tackle and also like brand yourself as being like the harbinger of, it will definitely help if you have a mastery of an understanding of like what is going on and being able to, similar to what you had just said, being able to not nitpick someone's position, but knowing it so well front and back that you can explain something to somebody in a way that you don't have to be oppositional. You can reach across the aisle and see, like, I get what you're saying here, but understand this and this and this happens because of X, Y, and Z. And here's why what you're saying really doesn't make any kind of logical sense. In those ways, you can actually kind of teach people. Instead of arguing with them, you're actually educating them on something, and maybe they'll appreciate that element of it. I guess from beyond here, I want to make sure I didn't run in through any of this. Networking, we covered that. Campaign financing, we covered that. Personal messaging, charisma, hiding your power level. We covered everything I think that I have seen on my end I wanted to make it through. So I'll turn it back to you again, Mr. Johnson. Was there anything else you wanted to cover here?
Just to reiterate, give it a try. If you can run, go for it. If you don't feel comfortable running, that's totally fine. Try to see about helping other people run for office. At least for the time being, go and start attending meetings. 10 local city council meetings, county commission meetings, the different boards and commissions that are available in the local area. Attend those meetings. You don't have to go to all of them. I mean, of course, if you're super busy, you got family, you got work obligations, I understand. So if you can only give a couple hours a month, totally fine. But at least dip your toe in there and kind of figure out what's going on locally. So you can kind of figure out, okay, well, this is what I care about. And this is what I want to do something about. Whether that's actually running for office yourself or trying to convince somebody else to run for office, either way, go for it. Help each other out. Ideally, what I would love to see is if we had at least 5 to 10 people in each major city that's able to help each other out get into these offices. And so we get one person in office. Awesome. Let's get another person in there. So the next time the elections come around, we run 2 people and we try to get both of them in there. Next time the elections come around, we run 5 people and try to get all of them in there and just kind of grow from there. That's how it works. That's how the left's done it for 100 years. We can do the same thing. The playbook is exactly the same. We can do the same thing that they do. I don't want people blackpilled that the system is so stacked against us that we can't step a toe in at all. I would say at the federal level, that's largely true, unfortunately, because you do have to appeal to AIPAC. For example, if you don't appeal to AIPAC, you're probably not going to get elected. With some small examples of like Massey, he's able to do it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you're not on AIPAC's payroll, you're probably not going to get elected. But at the local level, there's no local level AIPAC.
Right.
Depending on where you live, okay, there might be like a bigger Jewish community there that has some more control over things at the local level. Like if you live in Boca Raton, Florida, yeah, you're probably going to have to deal with the Jewish community. But where I live, I think in South Dakota, I think we have less than 200 Jews. So they're not a big issue. Now they try to make themselves into a big issue. There's this one organization that me and my local buddy have butted heads with a couple times called South Dakota Voices for Peace, if I remember correctly. And it's run by a Jew and a Muslim. and they show up on the news fairly often. Even though I've looked at their 990s, 990s is the non-government organization tax return, basically. Yep. I've looked at their 990s. It doesn't make any sense that they're not getting any money in, but they still have all this influence as far as being on the media all the time. So anytime one of us gets popped for something stupid, so like my buddy when he got doxxed, or me when I got arrested with Patriot Front, they had to go to them and get their opinion, because you always have to get a Jew's opinion on whatever political issue is going on. That's just the rule in America. And so they had to go to this lady who happened to be fired by Kristi Noem because she had been involved with some sort of scandal when she was running the prisons here in South Dakota. So she's still, it's just asinine that we have to bend over backwards for these people and how they have such an inordinate influence over our society. That's what we need to work across. We need to work against that. And we do that by pushing the Overton window, pushing our message, and getting people to see that, hey, maybe we don't need Jews involved in every single aspect of our politics, and we can actually start doing things ourselves.
Right. No, I completely agree with that. 100%, 110% agree with that. And that's another thing I think I would add there too, which is like, a lot of people will be, well, let me start here actually. I think the majority of people probably should ultimately go the route of assisting somebody they think could win. Not like a general, like don't run or anything. But I think that most people probably can find someone. It's an easier thing to do is to find somebody who's close to the positions, or if not, very much aligned with where you are, and assisting them in some way and bolstering them, whether it's donations or door knocking and all that. I think most people would probably enjoy assisting over actually being the face of it. But also in addition to that too, like, it's hard to almost say you're blackpilled on stuff when it's like you don't even know who's the county judge, right? Who's the criminal? Who's the highest judge in your county, right? Who's the sheriff in your county? Do you know these people by name? Do you know what their politics are? And for a lot of people, the answer is no, and it's because they didn't even try to look into it. They don't even know what's going on, and so we have some easy building blocks in front of us that just simply aren't being used. And so I repeat your message, right? You just got to get up and you got to get involved. You have to pay attention. You have to understand what's going on, and it's a bit of work. And it's kind of the point that I make all the time, right? Your enemies despise you. They weren't going to make it easy for you. And so, of course, it's going to be hard work. And part of it is just being vigilant, too. It's kind of a lost, value, but it's one that they had way back in the day, right? You have to be vigilant about your government in the tyranny and the corruption. You have to be paying attention. I would argue it's a duty to pay attention as a citizen of said nation, as a citizen of a county, of a state. It's your duty to pay attention to what is going on because you're a citizen there. You should be responsible for the government that's supposed to be for you and representing you. But
I would say if you don't plan on running, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. My buddy Gordon basically coined this aspect, but bully your local politicians. If you're not going to run for office yourself, go to the local county meetings, local city council meetings, and bully them within reason. Don't make threats because that'll get you in trouble. But you can go bully them about whatever they're proposing, whatever they're working on. They just have to sit there and take it because they're elected officials and they hate being embarrassed. So if you call them out on some sort of BS that they got going on, that could work to your advantage as well. And again, like I said, this is if you're not running. So if you're not going to run, attend the city council meeting and go bully them.
Right.
Make them feel bad.
Right. Yeah. You bully them, I guess, in the sense of shame them, humiliate them. Find an issue they're super weak on, bad moments.
And it puts them under the microscope. It lets them know that people are paying attention. And that's the biggest thing is these people are able to get away with anonymity because nobody's paying attention. Like you said, nobody knows who these people are at the local level. So they can do whatever. But as soon as people start paying attention, they start bullying them, they start harassing, then they can see, okay, well, I guess I got to do things a little more on the up and up. Otherwise, I'm going to get a bunch of stuff thrown at me.
Right. Yeah. You would be provocative.
That's basically how we got rid of the mayor in Cheyenne because we bullied her enough.
That's awesome. That's good. I mean, this is going to be, it looks like this tactic's already working on Vivek. Now, Vivek being a bit more of kind of a national kind of thing. So the whole nation's kind of pitching in, but it clearly works. And he's already been in really a few bad moments having to delete videos. So much so that his defenders were arguing that his real video was AI. And so you get these people on their heels. It's a good position to be be in. And yeah, Zeb's right. Byron Donald's probably going to be next. I think that's exactly what James Fishback is doing, actually calling him a slave, not backing down, saying, you think what was he said? He said, I'll stop calling Byron Donalds a slave when he returns the AIPAC money. And I was like, that's pretty feisty. And that's the kind of what we need in politics. It's a chip above. It's a little bit different. And it reminds me of what's the word? That kind of that Trump energy, the outsider coming into the system. Like I get you guys have rules, not playing by them. But again, you know, to be in positions like that with James Fishback, he's got a lot of funding behind him. And I forget what he's like, where he comes from. He's like a CEO. He made some noise, I think, by shutting down some H-1Bs with different businesses. So obviously, if you have money behind you, you can be a bit more free reign, obviously, but still obviously avoid making huge mistakes. But I feel like that's a great spot to go ahead and wrap it up. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, Mr. Johnson?
Just want to say hi to my buddy Regan. I saw that he was a subscriber, so that's cool. And then also my son is watching, so I want to say hi to him.
Hey,
but
awesome.
yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And you know, this is one thing that I wanted to do for a hot minute. Is start to entertain the idea of like what it does mean to actually get involved, especially because I get so often in the comments, people are very irritated or angry that it feels like all we do is, like I said at the beginning, just talk about these things without providing answers or solutions or advice for those to do so. But thank you very much for your time, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate everybody for being here. And as always, Christ is King. Deport Kash Patel, ban Pam Bondi from public life, put her back in the kitchen, and Lord, one day willing, we will have our country back. Thank you guys again. Appreciate you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ